Welcome to another episode in the Leading Safely podcast. I'm officially back from the States where I presented at the Community of Human and Organisational Learning Conference. I had an absolute ball and I met some really incredible people. I learned a lot, and you may or may not have heard my reflective episode last week on the sense of community that I think needs to be fostered in the health and safety world if we truly want to make a difference. If you haven't already, I would recommend you check out the episode. It's under 10 minutes long, so it's nice and short and sharp. This episode, though, I'm super excited to bring to you. Actually, the next few episodes I'm excited to bring to you, as I recorded these live at the conference with my new friends. So let me tell you about how I learned about my next guest and his awesome work. Whilst living in Western Australia, I attended a conference and networking for the Australian Institute of Health and Safety. There, I met Cameron Stevens, whom I refer to as the safety tech guy. He's all up in the space of AI and uses tech in general to assist health and safety and vice versa. Anyway, we became LinkedIn connections and had been for a good couple of years just tracking each other's posts, etc. Then I heard he was coming to Brisbane, so reached out about recording a podcast. And in February, I got a message from Cam saying he'd attended a conference in the States and he'd seen this guy present and thought that I would like him. So I checked out the guy, his content, and was instantly wrapped. It was down to earth, identifiable, simple, and unlike anything I had ever seen before. I absolutely loved it. I learned everything I could about the program, the company, and of course, the guy. Then, when it came to decide if I was heading to the conference in the States or not, when I saw the guy's name was also on the list as a presenter, I knew I was making the right choice to go. On my first night in America, I messaged him like a fangirl, however, didn't do the whole I'm your number one fan. I just politely asked if he would be cool enough to record a podcast episode with me, considering we were going to be in the same place at the same time and that I happened to like his work. Of course, he said yes, and we planned for his last day at the conference to catch up and record this episode. The next day, I'm in the conference ballroom where all the sessions are held, sitting down listening to another presenter speak, and I see what looks like the guy at a table in front of me. I bring his LinkedIn profile up on my phone and look at his head, and I'm thinking, I think it's him. I think it's him like an excited school kid. Then it gets even better. As I'm watching him, he's flicking through the conference program booklet, and each of the speakers have a profile page in the program. He stops on my profile and takes some time to wonder, I guess, who is this Aussie that stalked me and is viewing me constantly on LinkedIn so many times? I had one of those moments where you kind of kick yourself to check, is this actually really happening? The next thing that happens is I'm having lunch with the Brents and Jeff Life, and over comes the guy. I officially get to meet him and he sits down and eats lunch at our table. I realise now that if you've just joined in on this podcast, you may be thinking, did I step back in time to high school? Is she talking about someone she idolises, like a boy band or something? That night, he also attends the baseball game that I go to, and we get chatting and I get to know him a little bit more. I also get to know a fantastic member of his team. The next day he presents and it's too short and I just want to know more, of course. And then the following day we catch up again and the ice is broken, the rapport is there and I learn so much more. He, like me, is a massive safety nerd. The way to describe the feeling is, you know when you're studying and you meet your lecturers for the first time and you're kind of in awe because you've put them on a pedestal, but then you're let down because you realise they're just people? Well, this was different. When I met this guy, it was like meeting another like-minded health and safety professional that was at level with passion, understanding, and even goals for propelling the profession forward. So, you can hear the smile in my voice in this chat you're about to hear. You can hear the respect I have for him and his team and the work they're doing to cut the nonsense and just level with their front line on what matters most. Right, who have I been talking about up until now? It is none other than the awesome Matt Compher, Vice President of Safety, Health and Environmental at Quanta Services. And that brilliant body of work that I'm talking about is their learning capacity model and STKY, or Shit That Kills You, which is Quanta's version of a critical risk program. I really enjoyed my time chatting with Matt, and I hope that you as listeners will also enjoy listening in. So here is my chat with Matt Compher.
Hi Matt, thanks for joining me on the Leading Safely podcast. So as you know, I ask all my special guests for health and safety related questions. And the first one is, what do you think makes an effective health and safety leader?
So a couple things that I would say. Number one, you got to have a passion for people. This isn't a job. This isn't necessarily even a career. Like, you got to have passion. Like, you got to be driven to do this. And if you're not that way, I don't know how effective you're going to be.
Yep.
But I tell all new people coming in, when we hire new people off the street or out of college, you have to be a student of the profession.
Yeah.
Like, don't stop learning. What books are you reading right now?
Yep.
Even if you don't agree with the philosophy of somebody, read it, because that will make you better. Dive into the profession, be a student of the profession, and you can have a great career.
Yep, no, I completely agree with you. And I think if you stand in front of a group of men or women and you profess to speak a message, they can tell when you're not passionate about that message,
sure.
and we'll lose that respect for you.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just a job.
For me, it's been like a calling. Like, I've just had to do it. Like, I wouldn't want to do anything else. Like, this is it.
It's funny because you were talking about being a safety nerd in your speech today.
Yes.
And most people don't know, but the last 4 digits of my phone number actually spell the word safe.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of a nerd?
Yeah, 100%. And I bought it intentionally for that. So definitely a safety nerd with the word safe in your phone number. So second question is, and I'm sure you have these situations where you've come across a worker who is really stuck in their ways, and doesn't want to sort of move towards positive health and safety change. So what sort of words of wisdom would you give to someone who, wanted to move that person?
Yeah. Well, I think you got to look at the words you're using when you talk to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything that we do, we try to make consumable for the frontline worker. And when we're using those language, when you land on something that makes sense to them, that's what you have to explain, right? And you got to be open to it, and you got to ask them to be open to listening to different ideas. And it's a struggle sometimes. We built this culture, this profession over the last 40 years, and you're not going to change it overnight. So a consistent approach with those hard to crack nuts, maybe, or somebody that's not wanting to come along, consistent approach, simple, do not make it complicated.
Yeah.
And if you start at the core of, we care about people, people come around, because everybody generally cares.
I was going to say, it has to be a genuine care, though, doesn't it? Like,
for sure.
Not a fake kind of pretend.
And it's not compliance.
Yeah.
Like, if you're trying to push compliance, that's really hard to get there. And I did it for 20 years. Like, you shall do this because rule book says that, and that it's hard to come around. As soon as you get like this human performance mindset, or whatever you want to call it, capacity for us, sticky, like, it makes sense. And if you sit down and just take a little time and be consistent, it'll come around.
And then I guess the next question, which is always an interesting one, is if you had all the money in the world and all the resources, and you got to invent something that solved a workplace issue, what would you create and why?
I would create something that recognized weaknesses in the system.
Okay.
Because as soon as you recognize weakness prior to the release of energy, we could deal with it. Many times we don't see weaknesses in the system until it's too late. Everything that we're doing is trying to recognize them. If there was this flux capacitor that identified weaknesses in the system, that's what I would invent. I think it's like the new 3D goggles thing, because you'd look cool doing it, right? Yeah. So you'd put these things on and you'd look really cool, right? And maybe a hard hat and these things, and you would just look out across the horizon and you'd see your weaknesses in your organization and say, okay, that's where I'm going to spend my time. Because one of the things we struggle with is we only have so much energy. So where are we going to spend our energy? So being able to really pinpoint where our energy should be spent is key.
Makes you efficient.
Yeah.
And makes you futuristic. So if anyone ever says that you're not modern.
Right.
Say, well, actually. And then the final one, and obviously you talked about, coming from a compliance space and moving into more of a people kind of orientated hop kind of space. If you had to give yourself some words of wisdom and go back to your younger self, like when you first started your career, what would you tell yourself, to help you survive and thrive and get back to the point where you are at?
Yeah. Be open to change. Slow down. And learn from everybody. Like, there was so many, I learned from a lot of people, but there's a lot of people I didn't learn from, whether it was my ego or I didn't agree with them, so I shut them out, or whatever it might have been. Like, it takes a while to make these changes. Slow down. Everybody says you gotta go slow to go fast. I don't know, like, totally in there, because I'm like so passionate about moving, but as soon as we slow down, it starts to mature. I think that's real important. You got to learn from every situation.
Yeah.
I think early in my career, and I think early in a lot of people's careers, like they're not looking at situations to learn from. They're trying to find that next opportunity.
Yeah.
Slow down and learn.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And normally at this stage in the podcast episode, special guests get to talk about something they're passionate about.
Yeah.
Since I'm not sure if all my listeners are aware of Sticky, is that something you want to share?
I'm extremely passionate about Sticky, so it works, you know.
Yeah,
so Sticky is pretty clear. It's the shit that kills you, STKY. And, you know, we ask all of our crews each and every day, and anytime management or safety shows up, to have a Sticky discussion. And it's as simply as, what's sticky about this task, right? So what's the shit that's going to kill us with this task? And we made a paradigm shift from it's not if, it's when energy is released. So when energy is released, what's going to protect you and your crew? That's your capacity question, right? And then you ask the question, is that enough? And if you get those 3 questions right, we're all going to come home and we're all going to go to the rugby game. I would say baseball here in the States, but we're all going to go to our kids, whatever, right? Yeah. We're going to have a good weekend. All we had to do is get those questions right and we're going to be okay.
What was the feedback like from the workers when you first rolled it out?
It stuck, pun intended. Like, it's the first time in my career, and maybe in all of our careers, that we rolled something out in our workforce. Our frontline workers were saying, give me more. Yeah. Finally, we're talking about what's important. Yeah. We cut out the noise. No more quarterly initiatives. No more hand injury reductions, corporate wide. We're doing one thing. That's the capacity model. It's identifying where high energy is, where our stickies are, and build capacity.
The wheel, the energy wheel.
The energy wheel?
Yeah.
So you heard me say this in my talk today, but as safety professionals, I think we really screwed the job briefing process up. We've made it so long where we've tried to, we've put so much pressure on our frontline workers to identify everything that can possibly go wrong for the next 8 to 10 hours and meticulously write it down on a piece of paper, or sometimes on an iPad now, which I think is horrible as well. And you sit there and they don't use it as a tool. They use it for you and I. So when they show up, they got a tool that says, we go through it with a magnifying glass. Oh, you forgot that trip hazard, or you didn't get this, or even worse, post-event, we do it. Oh, you didn't do the trip hazard. Here's 3 days off. We did that for 20 years in our industry, and we got to stop. Like, the energy wheel and sticky is all defined, is all focused on redefining how we do the job briefing process. And there are things that we have to do. There's compliance things in the job briefing process. There's the local emergency response. Some of that stuff we got to have. But right before we go to work, get your energy wheel out. Are we missing any energies? What's sticky? Have that discussion. Make sure we have capacity or controls, and let's go to work.
And did you have any pushback in regards to the little things that, are no longer, being focused on, like your hand injuries, or was there any people that were like, whoa, are you saying you don't care about my hand being cut off anymore?
Oh, totally. We still get those questions. And we do care, and I'm going to try to prevent that too. But if you scratch your finger, it's going to be okay. Let's not change your life, right? So we really, when I say we don't look at hand injuries, we'll look at them at a local level. If I have a small work group that's had 5 finger injuries, a local safety professional should be looking at that and doing their professional analysis. And hey, maybe we got the wrong gloves. But a corporate focus should not go there. Corporate focus should be our strategy, our philosophy around building capacity around high energy.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's been great. So thanks very much for taking time out to speak with me. Hopefully you have a safe flight.
Yes, thank you. I will be in Australia this fall. I look forward to it. And you have a safe flight. Welcome to the U.S. and hope you enjoyed the baseball game. It was awesome.
Well, there you have it. That was my chat with Mr. Sticky himself. Matt attended the conference with Carter Pittard, a safety manager for Quanta, who is a part of Matt's team. Carter holds a pivotal role in ensuring Sticky is operationalised across the business, so to meet and hang out and get to know both of these amazing gentlemen was truly a privilege. If you are now curious and you're wanting to know about Sticky and the capacity model, you need to go to www.learning.thecapacitymodel.com and read and do everything on there to get a real understanding of how Quanta have changed their focus and how effective that paradigm shift has been. I really feel that there's so much that we can learn from Quanta's model. As safety professionals, we do get hyper-focused on the small stuff. We'll trend things like slips, trips and falls and create campaigns and posters aimed at addressing the issues, while things that matter the most go unidentified. By honing in on the small stuff, we're losing sight of the shit that can kill you. So I truly feel like no matter who you are or what you do, you can gain something from checking out Quanta's work. So do check out that website again at www.learning.thecapacitymodel.com. I really do hope that you got something great out of this episode. So until next time, stay safe.